Windows tutorial video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at a video that's been requested by a lot of you guys over the past few weeks, and that is, as you can probably tell from the title, Windows Server 2003. Now first off, I just want to say sorry if I sound a little bit sick. I mentioned this in my last video. I still am getting over a bit of a cold, so if I don't sound normal to you guys, that is why, but I am feeling, much better than before. But anyway, let's just get on with the video. I do want to thank all of you guys for suggesting this. This was actually requested by, I think, 3 people and probably even more. But the 3 names that I have here are Leo LD, Quenflo, and DHF299. Now, sorry if I pronounced any of your names wrong, but these are the 3 people that have wanted me to do this video, and like I said, there's probably some more out there. But yeah, so that's what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be taking a look at Windows Server 2003, which was the successor to Windows Server 2000. Now, Windows Server 2000 was based off of the Windows 2000 code base, obviously, because it got that name. But Windows Server 2003 was the server version of Windows XP. It's very similar to Windows XP. It's sometimes considered to be a better, more stable version of Windows XP. And it was released on April 24th, 2003. And a fun fact about this is that Windows Vista, which was the next major version of Windows after XP, was developed using solely Windows Server 2003 code. Originally, they did use Windows XP code, but they did a development reset towards, I believe, halfway through, and they decided to use Windows Server 2003 code. So, alright, so yeah, let's just jump right into the virtual machine creation process here. Now I am going to have all the links you're going to need down below in the video description, which is just going to be to the Windows Server 2003 ISO. Now what I'm not going to be able to provide is a product key, and the reason for that is simply because Microsoft is actually still providing support for Windows Server 2003. So it would probably be considered software piracy if I give you guys a product key, so I don't really want to be doing any of that. That is, with all that out of the way, let's just jump right into the virtual machine creation process. Now I'm going to be using VMware Workstation 11. You can use whatever virtual machine software that you want to use, or you can just do this on a real server, because that's probably what's gonna, be kind of useful to most of you guys that want to do this. Is you might want to do it on like a real server. But yeah, so I'm just going to click on create a new virtual machine. And one thing I should mention is, as I mentioned in all of my Windows tutorials, is that VMware Workstation is very different from something like VirtualBox or Microsoft Virtual PC or something like that. So what you see here is not necessarily going to be exactly the same in all those other different programs, but it's going to give you the same result, but this process here is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to choose the typical or the recommended option. I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to choose I will install the operating system later. Even though we have this option to put an ISO in here, it's usually best to just to go this way so we can customize it more. And we're going to click on next. And for the guest operating system, I'm actually going to choose Windows Server 2003, but the ISO is for the Enterprise Edition. And just to be extra safe, I'm going to choose the x64 edition of the Enterprise, version, because I believe this ISO is for the x64 edition. But it's always, it would be perfectly fine if you install an x86 operating system on a 64-bit computer, but yeah, just to be safe, I'm going to make it a 64-bit VM, but make sure that you choose the Enterprise version, as that is what the actual ISO is for. And once you have all that configured, you're just going to click on the next button, and I'm going to click on next again with that name there. And I'm going to store the disk as a single file. I'm actually just going to leave it at 40 gigabytes because I think that's plenty for a server operating system. And we're going to click on customize hardware. Now you'll see that it has already allocated 1 gig of RAM to the VM, and that is just because it is a Enterprise edition. If it was the standard edition, it actually allocates somewhere down here. So it's a good thing that so basically if you are not able to, or if it doesn't auto allocate it for you, you want to make sure that you're giving it at least 1024 megabytes and 1 processor. Now you can change these values if you want, but these are the bare minimum. I'm just going to leave them like this. And we're going to go down to the CD drive, and you're going to use an ISO image file, and you're going to browse to that ISO that you downloaded. And if you haven't done that, again, the link's going to be down below. And once you have that selected, you're just going to click on the close button and then finish, and it's going to pop up with a new virtual machine. And all we have to do from here is just click on power on. There's no date setting back or anything like that. This is a full final release version of Windows, so we don't have to deal with setting the date back or anything like that. But yeah, so here we are. As I always mention, times are way faster in a virtual machine than they are on a real computer. So if you're using a real computer, your times are going to depend on your processor speed and your hard disk read and write speed and the amount of RAM you have, etc. So I just want to make you aware of that. But so anyway, here we are at the setup. This is probably going to look very similar to anyone who has installed any version of Windows NT before. It's pretty basic. We just have to press on the Enter key, and we have to press F8 to agree to the license agreement. And yeah, you will see here it says x64 edition, so I'm guessing it's the x64 edition. And this is for Windows Server 2003 R2 Standard Edition, Enterprise Edition, Standard x64 Edition, and Enterprise x64 Edition. So we're just going to press F8, I agree. We're going to press Enter to install in the unpartitioned space. And we're going to format using the NTFS file system. I'm actually just going to choose quick, because we are in a virtual machine and we don't need to actually check the actual sectors of the hard drive. But if you're doing it on a real computer, it would probably be best to choose actual or the full format. And now it's going to check the drive, and it's going to copy the files over. And so I'm just going to let this do that. And now it's going to initialize the Windows configuration. And we're just going to press Enter to reboot the computer. And once we do that, from now on, it's probably going to look very similar to any Windows XP style setup. You see, we have a sort of Windows XP style boot screen. It just says Windows Server 2003. And we're going to get to a screen that looks just like the XP setup, but it's in gray, as you're going to see here. Yeah, so just to kind of I guess indicate that it's a server instead of Windows XP. But yeah, so this can take a while, especially since this is the Enterprise version where it has like a lot more stuff to install. While it's doing this, I guess I could tell you about the different editions of Windows Server 2003 they had. From what it looks like, they had 3 different main editions. One was called Standard, one was Enterprise, the one we have here, and the biggest one, or the most advanced one, was Data Center. Now the Standard Edition was aimed towards small to medium-sized businesses, and it had some things like for file and printer sharing and office secure internet connectivity, and yeah, basic things like that. And it was also capable of addressing up to 32 gigs of RAM. And from what it looks like here, it had both a 32 and a 64-bit version. Now the Enterprise Edition was aimed towards medium to large businesses, and it's a full-function server operating system that supports up to 8 physical processors. So you could have 8, like not cores, but actual processors inside of one server. And it could, and that would allow it to use some enterprise class features, such as 8-node clustering using the Microsoft Cluster Server. And it actually used support for up to 64 gigs of RAM. Now the Data Center version was basically for the best, or like for the most advanced businesses. This is like the best of the best version you can get. It supports a maximum of 32 physical processors, and again, those aren't cores, those are actual processors, and 64 gigs of RAM. So you can have 64 gigs of RAM in this thing.